From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
It is the evening of the first day of the second regular session of the 78th West Virginia Legislature. As the state constitution dictates in Article 7, Section 6, the governor shall at the commencement of each session give to the legislature information by message of the condition of the state and shall recommend such measures as he shall deem expedient. Good evening. I'm Beth Voorhees. The Constitution says the governor shall give information about the condition of the state, and governors do that. But they also have used the occasion to tout their accomplishments since taking office, or their administration's accomplishments over the past year. The State of the State Address is now a pep rally to kick off the 60-day session. I'm joined tonight in our studio by my colleague Scott Finn. Scott will once again be reporting from the Senate on our program, The Legislature Today, which premieres Monday on West Virginia PBS. Welcome to the co-hosting desk of the State of the State Address. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Beth.
The governor has given us some hints of what he might mention during this address. What have you heard?
Well, I think this is going to be a lot of talk about education. First of all, as a lot of teachers and educators will want to know, there's a 3% pay increase that's included in the governor's budget for next year. On top of that, a $400 bonus for classroom teachers. But more than that, he's going to talk about signing bonuses for teachers in areas of critical need. These are not geographic areas, but math, science, and programs like that. Also, listen for things like bucks for brains and bucks for jobs, money set aside for research, and also money set aside for job training.
And regarding the teacher pay raise, I noticed as I was leaving the Capitol tonight to come here for this broadcast, a lot of members of the American Federation of Teachers West Virginia walking to the Capitol, no doubt to give the governor a warm greeting as he made his way from the governor's mansion to the House chamber of the state capitol tonight.
Well, this is becoming a tradition because, of course, the AFT members were there last year pushing for a bigger pay increase, and I think you're going to see the legislature consider raising that from 3% to higher. We'll see if they succeed.
We are waiting for the governor to enter the House chamber of the state capitol in Charleston. The Board of Public Works has, of course, been assembled. So has the state Senate. So has the Supreme Court justices are there. Special guests invited by the governor are there. And we understand now that the governor is beginning to enter the House chamber at the state capitol. And of course, we are bringing you live coverage of the State of the State Address, the governor's fourth since taking office. So let's go and show you pictures now from the House chamber at the state capitol. Governor making his way down and shaking hands. You see Sergeant at Arms O. Smith there, the longtime Sergeant at Arms. Also in the picture is Senator Truman Chafin, the Majority Leader of the state Senate. A lot of handshakes and hugs today at noon in the House Delegates Chamber when the session gavelled in by Speaker Rick Thompson. A lot of people that don't see each other very often, and they're always across party lines. There's always lots of hugs and smiles and handshakes all across party lines on the day of the first day of a session like this.
And Beth, no one is forgetting that this is an election year. Governor Manchin, of course, right now is running relatively unopposed. But I'm sure that he wants to make a big impression, and the legislature, too, is going to be remembering that, again, they're up for election this year. And
an election year State of the State Address is always a little longer than other State of the State Addresses. I don't know if I can really prove that or not, but we'd have to go back and actually times of the State of the State Addresses. One thing I learned today, Scott, very interesting from our colleague Mannix Porterfield, a reporter for the Beckley Register Herald, told me the State of the State Address used to be given in mid-afternoon so that the TV stations could use clips of it at their 6 o'clock news. And it was, he said, Jay Rockefeller, when he became governor, moved the State of the State Address to 7 p.m. so he could get prime-time live coverage for the State of the State Address. I assured Mr. Porterfield that if the governor moved it to mid-afternoon, West Virginia Public Broadcasting would be there to cover it, no matter when he gave it. The governor is now approaching the podium, so we'll go ahead and take you live to the House chamber at the state capitol in Charleston for Governor Joe Manchin and the State of the State Address.
Hold on, I'm going to give you the book. Hold on. Thank you.
Members of the Senate, invited guests, along with President Tom, it is my distinct honor and privilege to present to you the Governor of the great state of West Virginia, the Honorable Joe Manchin III.
Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, members of the legislature, distinguished guests, and my fellow West Virginians. Standing here in this historic chamber, delivering my first State of the State address in January of 2005, it was clear that the challenges ahead were daunting, but the possibilities for success were unmistakable. Our most immediate task was to demonstrate to everyone in this state and across this nation that West Virginia was not only serious about getting its house in order, but was also committed to retaining and creating the good jobs with benefits that our people and their families deserve. Working with the truly progressive legislature, as well as with individuals and groups from all sides of our state's many aisles, including our vision shared partners, the AFL-CIO, West Virginia State Chamber of Commerce, AARP, the Business and Industry Council, West Virginia Education Association, West Virginia Hospital Association, and the United Mine Workers of America. I am pleased to say that we have made significant strides in these efforts. Strides that would not have been possible without our unsung heroes, our state employees. State employees are too often taken for granted by all of us. But I want them and everyone listening tonight to know how important the work they do is to this state, and how much I truly thank them for helping us to achieve some really important goals. While I'm sure that we can all agree that there is much more to do, I want you to share regarding some of the facts and what we have been able to accomplish. In West Virginia, since I gave that first address, and I'll start by talking about our most serious and enduring challenges, which has always been job creation. This past year, a study by Expansion Magazine and the National Policy Research that reviewed over 19 million businesses across the country ranked West Virginia 8th in the nation for business recruitment and attraction. The state's average unemployment rate last year was 4.6%, the lowest unemployment average in the state's history. And the number of West Virginians working last year averaged 778,269, the highest number during a year ever recorded. I don't know about you, but I think those are some statistics that you can hang your hat on the next time you're asked, how are things going in West Virginia? But I also know there are quite a few people out there right now saying, yeah, those figures you're stating sound good, but how can I be sure these expanding companies and good jobs you keep talking about actually exist? And if they do exist, where are they? Well, I'll tell you where they are. They're in places like Harrison County, where Graph Tech International, which received training assistance from the state, has expanded its advanced graphite materials production facility and recently added 60 new jobs. They're in Beaver at Klockner Pentaplast, the world's leading producer of plastic films used in medical and food packaging. This company recently evaluated their operations in West Virginia and has decided to expand their facilities with world-class technology, making this a center of excellence in the southern part of West Virginia. And because the state has consistently stood by them as a partner, they plan to not only retain 41 good-paying jobs, but add 15 more. They're also in Marshall County, where the largest investment in our state since Toyota is being made, in excess of $100 million, is being spent there to start the Certainty Gypsum Wallboard plant, with the state assisting with an access road, infrastructure, and training. They're also in Barbersville at Second Creek Technologies, where a 7-member team is growing a world-class computer forensics company right here in West Virginia. In addition, Second Creek is drawing talent back home, talent like West Virginia Todd Nessel. Todd was working out of state, but came home to West Virginia and is now helping to build Second Creek. And they're in Berkeley Springs, where at the Washington Homeopathic owners Joe and Linda Lillard, who have received assistance with their e-commerce capabilities from our Small Business Development Center, run a multi-million-dollar business that exports to more than 40 destinations around the world and is growing by approximately 20% every year. But what illustrates these jobs numbers best are the personal stories of the people who work at these companies and the many others who are choosing to locate or expand in West Virginia. People like Sonia Buck. Sonia is a single mother. She was employed as a security guard at the boarded-up Walker Systems plant in Williamstown, West Virginia, while also going to school to pursue a better life. If someone came by the guard shack at Walker, they would sometimes see both Sonia and her 10-year-old son, Cody, working on their homework together. So when the Walker Systems facility was sold, Sonia was concerned. But the new owners of the plant, Hino Motors, one of the companies that I was able to meet with on our economic development trip to Japan, put her fears to rest and hired her as a logistics team member for their new Hino truck production facility, the first assembly plant for Hino Motors in the United States. And now Sonia's wages, benefits, and working hours have all improved, allowing her to pay for her schooling and get herself back on her feet financially in good shape. And so that you can see for yourselves that the people and companies I've mentioned tonight are real, at this time, I would like to ask Joe and Linda Lillard, Todd Nessel, Sonia and Cody Buck, and Mark Arrington and Dave Veazey of Klockner Pentaplast to please stand and be recognized. If they would stand and be recognized, please. I'm also pleased tonight to welcome to West Virginia our 20th Japanese company, Kureha Corporation of Tokyo. Kureha will invest more than $100 million to build a plant to produce and sell high-performance polymer, known as PGA, at the DuPont Chemical Complex in Bell. Construction is scheduled to start early this year, with production set to begin in 2010. Liz Gershon and Tom Provost of Kureha Corporation are here with us tonight. So please join me in officially welcoming them and Kureha to the Mountain State. I also fully appreciate, for those of you at home watching or listening tonight, that if you haven't benefited from all that I've just spoken about, it's hard to be too excited about these numbers or stories, which is why I am still not satisfied and will remain totally committed to working hard every day to make things better in West Virginia. I also remain committed to running a responsible government. Since 2004, we've tackled our state's debts, putting an additional $1.7 billion towards our retirement systems, so that our state employees can be confident that the money they've worked so hard to earn will be there when they need it. We've also done something that I don't think anyone ever thought could or would be done. We've cut the size of state government for the second year in a row, the first consecutive decrease in employees in at least 16 years, showing that the days of ballooning state payrolls are officially over. And we've improved services to our citizens. The West Virginia Bureau of Senior Services, for example, has been steadily growing the number of seniors we assist. Over 1,500 seniors and their families have benefited since last July from the Bureau's new FARE, which is Families with Alzheimer's In-Home Respite and Lighthouse programs, allowing them to receive services in their homes, with more seniors to be added this year. We've committed over $300 million since 2004 to installing and upgrading water and sewage systems throughout West Virginia, with at least $77 million worth of additional projects set to begin this year, bringing clean drinking water and safe sewage systems to many West Virginians who have never had them. It is also estimated that 80% of West Virginia households now have access to broadband internet, up from 58% in 2004. And our friends at Cisco Systems, thanks to our own Mountain State native and Cisco CEO, John Chambers, are working closely with us and the state's internet providers to reach our 100% goal by 2010, so that our citizens and businesses can better compete in today's global and technologically savvy economy. We've also reached an agreement with Verizon to place free public wireless broadband at all rest areas and information centers by the middle of this year. In addition, this year our Division of Natural Resources, working with the Nature Conservancy, is preserving 4,600 acres of land on the rim of the New River Gorge. And providing significant new hunting and recreational opportunities in West Virginia, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And when it comes to putting money back into taxpayers' pockets, I believe we've accomplished more in the past 3 years than ever before in this state. West Virginia consumers have benefited from over $80 million worth of reductions in their insurance costs, with many more insurance companies doing business in West Virginia today than in 2004. Our workers' compensation system, once known as the Achilles heel of our state, has been completely transformed. In addition to our injured workers receiving better and quicker service, our businesses' workers' comp costs have decreased by an average of 27%, resulting in savings of roughly $150 million. We've also cut taxes because West Virginians deserve to keep more of what they earn. Specifically, we've saved the people of our state approximately $100 million a year by increasing the low-income family tax credit, doubling the amount of the senior citizens' refundable homestead exemption tax credit, removing our Welcome to West Virginia motor vehicle privilege tax, and cutting our food tax in half. Additionally, we removed another $100 million of tax burden from our businesses during the past 3 years, by reducing, among other things, our corporate net income and business franchise taxes. And I will propose more reductions this year. These things add up. If you combine our tax cut with our workers' comp decreases and our insurance reforms, that's at least $430 million that has gone back to the hardworking people and businesses of West Virginia. And while doing all of this, we have also found ways to consistently increase the pay of our state employees, school service personnel, and teachers, with a majority of professional educators receiving increases since 2004 of between 10.5% and 19%. And I am confident that working together, we will continue this consistent and responsible form of compensation. But do we still have a long way to go? You bet we do. And there are more things we need to do to create an even more responsible government. I can assure you we will do more to make sure that you're able to keep as much money in your own pockets as possible, that local governments will have even more autonomy to operate independently, and that the state government in Charleston will assist you, not get in your way. As our economy grows, we will continue to share. We must also recognize that we have suffered great losses during these past 3 years from our state soldiers who have died serving their country in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, to our emergency service professionals who have died on duty in communities like Ghent. We must not forget tonight to honor those brave men and women who are no longer with us. That's worth it. Last year, we passed legislation allowing for the beneficiary of a fallen firefighter or EMS responder to receive $50,000 in death benefits from our state. It was the least that we could do for those who we count on every day to be there for us in an emergency. And this year, for our veterans, I know that we are all very much concerned about the psychological and emotional challenges that they are facing as they return from their dangerous overseas duties. And so I pledge to work with the legislature and the West Virginia Council of Churches' new program, CareNet, Caring Beyond the Yellow Ribbon, to make sure we are providing our vets with the resources and counseling they need. It is our duty to do right by these amazing men and women who have made such tremendous personal sacrifices on our behalf. And of course, we must also pause to remember our lost coal miners, whose deaths have led to so many significant changes to our mine safety laws and procedures, not only here in West Virginia, but across this entire country. Since the tragedies at Sago and Aracoma, we have instituted a rapid response accident reporting system. We've hired additional mine inspectors and better equipped and trained our mine rescue teams. We've made it easier to close an entire mine if a pattern of serious violations exists. We have restricted the use of belled air. We have strengthened the requirements for the construction of mine sills and instituted additional education courses for mine foremen and fire bosses. In addition, all underground coal operations in the state are in full compliance with our new emergency air pack requirements, which occurred 6 months earlier than originally scheduled and amounts to over 40,000 new self-contained rescuers deployed in our mines during this past year. West Virginia also received its first underground emergency shelter in November, with a total of 308 shelters scheduled to be delivered over the next several months to mining companies throughout the state, and the deployment of wireless communication and tracking devices in West Virginia's mines, which has been a major undertaking, is now well underway. Coal company plans for these devices have been received and approved, and the deployment of these systems into our state's mines has begun and will continue throughout 2008, meaning that all West Virginia's underground mines should have these systems in place at least 1 year earlier than required by the federal government. We want our state's workplaces to be the safest in the nation, and we've worked hard to put in place improvements that don't just sound good, but that will truly make a difference. And we will not stop because, as everyone knows, one fatality is one fatality too many. As we begin to set our priorities for 2008, we must recognize that many West Virginians still struggle every day worrying about their financial stability, the future of their children, and if they are going to be able to properly care for their aging parents. That is why we must continue to get our state's house in order so that we are providing the best possible return on the investments of our citizens while also improving our economic climate so that we are able to retain and attract even more good jobs with benefits. And of course, it all starts with education. At this time, as is tradition, I would like to recognize Eric Kincaid from Morgantown High School, this year's West Virginia Teacher of the Year. Eric is a science teacher who is innovative and dynamic and infuses his students with enthusiasm, even building a life-size well once as a teaching tool. Eric is here with us tonight. So Eric, would you please stand and be recognized? Also with us tonight are Mike Lutz and Jeff Moore from Toyota, which once again is recognizing the importance of our teachers by providing our Teacher of the Year with a Toyota Prius. Mike and Jeff, would you please stand and let us say thank you. As I mentioned earlier, I believe we can make more advances this year when it comes to responsibly compensating classroom teachers like Eric. In addition, I also want to go back this session and revisit a change that we made last year that just hasn't worked as I would have hoped. One of the most important things that we can do to address teacher salary issues across our state is to provide counties with flexibility within the school aid formula to capture more local funds so that they can contribute additional money to their teachers' pay based on their specific county needs. We gave that flexibility last year, but I have found that in many cases the money was used for purposes other than classroom salary supplements that it was meant for. Therefore, I will introduce legislation this year that requires all of our counties to use 100% of this extra school aid formula money for classroom teachers' salaries. We also have to take steps to improve the environment that our classroom teachers currently work in and our children currently learn in. Every year during the legislative session, we all come together and work on and talk about education. But I sincerely believe that until we're committed to giving our teachers back the ability and freedom to teach their students, instead of requiring them to spend their days policing their students, we are never going to truly accomplish all of the things that we know are so important in education. Our teachers and our students deserve better, and I am determined to do better and to give our teachers every possible tool they need to take back their classrooms, and we must do it and start tonight. I have asked the 21st Century's Jobs Cabinet to develop the West Virginia Bill of Rights and Responsibilities for Learning. The Bill of Rights will set standards both for the rights and responsibilities of students while in school and the authority of teachers to protect those rights and enforce those responsibilities. Specifically, I don't believe we've done enough to prevent the problem of student bullying. Student bullying must stop, and it must stop now. While the State Board of Education has taken this issue seriously, and our schools are required by law to have anti-bullying plans in place, I want to go a step further and establish a commission to thoroughly review the anti-bullying practices of our schools and recommend to me, the legislature, and the State Board of Education the best ways to expand our efforts to identify and stop dangerous and bullying behavior before it becomes a threat, as well as how to best deal with disruptive students during the school day. For example, what can we learn from the successes that has been achieved by the National Guard at the West Virginia Challenge Academy? And how can we take what they've learned and apply it to how we handle our most troubled and disruptive students in the future? I am also proposing that we revoke the driver's license of students who are found to have committed serious offenses, like assaulting a teacher or a fellow student or bringing a dangerous weapon to school. And I want to add a requirement that in order to obtain and keep a driver's license between the ages of 16 and 18, you must receive passing grades. A driver's license is a privilege, not a right. Now, are these steps enough to truly give teachers back their classrooms? No, but they are a start. And on a positive note for our children, I'm proud to announce tonight the development in our schools of Kids First, a kindergarten health screening program. Through the use of the administrative funds from the state's Children's Health Insurance Program, West Virginia will establish a health service initiative that is the first in the nation to ensure every uninsured child entering kindergarten has a wellness screening prior to starting school. A comprehensive wellness screening is an important child development assessment tool and is already covered by PEIA, Medicaid, CHIP, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield. By encouraging this early connection to a medical home, we can ensure that children are healthy and ready to learn when school begins, setting the stage for a strong and healthy population down the road. Once this first class of kindergartners is screened, our intentions are to provide follow-up screenings as they reach 2nd, 5th, and 8th grades so that we can continue to assess their health as they grow. And I am pleased to say that Mountain State Blue Cross and Blue Shield right here in West Virginia has generously offered to contribute $1.5 million towards the Kids First program. Now with us here tonight is Fred Early of Mountain State Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Fred, would you stand so we can say thank you? I am also pleased to announce the formation of West Virginia RX. Beginning February the 1st, uninsured working West Virginians will be able to access free prescriptions at West Virginia Health Right. Because of a public-private partnership between my office, West Virginia Health Right, Beckley Health Right, the Benedum Foundation, the Hines Family Charities, the Attorney General's Office, and Healthy West Virginia, doctors, hospitals, and patients will be able to access prescription drugs donated by manufacturers by phone or email via an efficient paperless system. And for the future health of our citizens, we must continue our war on illegal drugs in West Virginia. In the past, we committed extra money to this effort. But this year, due to the hard work of our state police, as part of an investigation led by federal prosecutors, we will be receiving over $44 million to help combat our state's drug problem. And I believe that within the spending guidelines and requirements given to us by the federal government, we can make tremendous strides towards winning our drug war once and for all. As I said in this chamber 2 years ago, I want our drug criminals to continue to know that wherever you are and wherever you may be hiding or hiding your illegal drugs, our troopers will find you. Therefore, I am proposing that we use these new funds to institute my strategic spending plan for a drug-free West Virginia. Whoa. Okay. Pull myself back together here. Just come on. Obviously, our best hope for reducing future drug use is to make sure our kids never start using or dealing drugs in the first place. West Virginia has been nationally recognized for its Prevention Resource Officer Program, a cooperative effort between schools and law enforcement designed to put officers in schools to teach students about drug and safety issues and to recognize potential danger, prevent violence, and respond to dangerous situations. We will build upon the current successes of this program and partner with local police and sheriff's departments to put prevention resource officers in more schools in every county of our state. There you go. Healthcare professionals. A little technical difficulty there. Healthcare professionals are also a key resource in preventing prescription drug abuse, a leading killer in West Virginia, and in helping those who have become addicted to prescription and other illegal drugs. Therefore, we will work to develop and expand addiction training programs for healthcare professionals throughout the state. The state of West Virginia has also been implementing a solution known as drug courts to help individuals convicted of minor crimes due to substance abuse problems get the treatment they need, become productive members of society, and stay out of jail. Research has documented that drug courts reduce repeat offenders and result in substantial cost savings. That is why, as part of our statewide drug plan, we will provide funding for expanding drug courts and needed substance abuse treatment. These funds will be used directly by the state police on such things as hiring additional drug diversion investigators, adding additional law enforcement training courses, improving the State Police Academy, installing mobile data terminals, and purchasing electronic fingerprint capture stations. Used properly, these funds give us the opportunity to tackle our drug problems head-on, which will improve our law enforcement climate, our educational climate, and even our economic climate, because our businesses are looking for good, hardworking, and most especially drug-free workers. In fact, workforce development is another one of the challenges we face in West Virginia today. I never imagined that we would experience a time when companies couldn't find enough skilled workers in our state. But that's exactly what's happening. If I've heard it once when out talking to businesses, I've heard it 100 times. We need more skilled workers, and we need them to be trained for the jobs of today, not the jobs of yesterday. We know we have the hardest working people in the world. Now we just need to make sure we also have the best trained. So, next to tackling our drug problems, the best thing we can do to improve our workforce is to target our higher education and workforce development investments towards meeting the needs of the state's growing and emerging industries. The strategies for investment that I'm about to discuss all started when I visited the University of Kentucky last year and learned about the state's Bucks for Brains program that provided money to its two major research universities that was matched with private donations to create new opportunities for the state-of-the-art research and entrepreneurship. From that seed, an entire tree is now about to be planted in West Virginia with an initiative I like to call Bucks for Jobs. West Virginia must be a player in the 21st century world economy. And to do so, we need to develop more intellectual and financial capital. Bucks for Jobs achieves both these goals by leveraging smart, interconnected investments in economic development, higher education, and workforce training. First, as part of our own Bucks for Brains initiative and using one-time surplus monies, we will create a $50 million endowment fund for our two research universities, WVU and Marshall, to stimulate world-class research and development and attract venture capital, which will eventually lead to jobs in emerging high-tech, high-wage industries. The state's investment will be matched dollar for dollar by private donations, resulting in sizable funds that will strengthen our most promising research departments, ultimately leading to business spin-offs, new patents, and job creation. At the University of Kentucky, for example, their state investments have so far resulted in 44 new startup companies with over 870 employees, with the University of Louisville adding another 18 startup companies. Second, we will coordinate numerous federal and state workforce training programs to create a single and comprehensive training bucks program. We want to make sure that the money we're already spending on workforce training is being accessed by the businesses that need it, and that all businesses in our state know about training bucks and how to get them. I'm also proposing a major investment in the development of 2 state-of-the-art advanced technical centers. These centers will offer training that is specialized to meet the needs of existing businesses as well as those new businesses that are now attracting to the state. And they will collaborate directly with industry to design and deliver high-quality instruction. In counties throughout West Virginia, we also have serious shortages of workers in allied health fields, from nurses, where our deficits are most acute and affect every community statewide, to dental assistants, emergency medical technicians, pharmacy workers, and surgery technicians. Therefore, we must begin building the programs necessary to produce the large numbers of critical healthcare specialists we will need to replace retiring baby boomers. To that end, we're going to invest in existing programs at our community and technical colleges to fill this growing need. This investment will result in approximately 1,000 new allied health field graduates every year in West Virginia beginning 2010. In addition, we must do a better job of keeping our best and brightest here in the Mountain State. The Promise Scholarship has been a great program that I want to see continue. But I think in order to make sure that the people of West Virginia are getting a return on the substantial investment they're making in these students' futures, we need to ensure that our native sons and daughters look seriously at their career options here before assuming that the pastures might be greener on the other side of the state line. Therefore, I am proposing that the Promise Board develop a rule requiring recipients to work in West Virginia following graduation as a condition of not having to pay back the Promise Scholarship. I am also proposing that we add payback requirements for those new state employees who receive additional state-paid training, such as our state police officers, our state pilots, engineers, and others. Too often we are spending state dollars to provide training for these new employees, only to have them leave us for other job opportunities outside of state government. Once their training is complete. Now, while I would never stand in the way of an employee bettering themselves or their families, the state must not always be left holding the bag with nothing to show for it. And as important as the topics I've discussed so far, I believe one of the biggest issues that we face, not only as a state, but as a nation, is energy. Today we hear the terms energy security and climate change spoken almost constantly. As we consider how our nation can provide an adequate energy supply that is environmentally acceptable, we must recognize the critical role of clean coal technologies in this discussion because of its wide availability, versatility, and reasonable cost. Clean coal will be strategically important to our energy future. Coal currently is the fuel source for almost half of electricity generated in the United States. And I sincerely believe that technological solutions leading to the greening of the coal industry hold the key to America's security, which is why I am so committed to working towards the continued development of clean coal technologies and the construction of clean coal power and fuel liquefaction plants. And with the carbon that these new technologies can capture, having been proven to enhance natural gas and oil production, it is clear that those industries have bright futures in our state as well. In 2006, West Virginia produced over 1.7 million barrels of oil. And through enhanced oil recovery, we will now be able to extend the production horizon of our reserves. Natural gas is also a fundamental building block of our state's economy. We produce over 225 billion cubic feet of natural gas a year to heat our homes and fuel our factories. And so I look forward to the continued success of both of these industries in West Virginia. I also recognize that West Virginia is rich in renewable energy resources too, such as biomass in the form of wood and crop residue that will eventually be used to make fuel. Solar and wind opportunities also have their place in our energy portfolio as well. To that end, I am committed to examining the legal barriers that restrict the post-mining development of surface mining operations and exploring ways to give priority to projects such as biomass, solar, and wind for the purpose of making these lands productive. However, we must acknowledge that the main ingredient to a successful energy future is sustainability. We need to keep learning how to optimize the use of our resources, become more energy efficient, and minimize waste. And we can all do our part by simply switching to compact fluorescent bulbs and installing high-efficiency heating and cooling systems, proper insulation, and storm doors, and the state will help you with these purchases in 2008 by providing a new energy-efficient products tax incentive. We can also promote renewable energy and energy efficiency in our building designs. As part of that effort here at the Capitol, we entered into an energy conservation and savings contract in 2005 that guarantees that the state Capitol complex will reduce its energy consumption by at least 5%. However, I believe that we can do more, and so I am directing our agencies to reduce consumption by at least 10% this year. And I would ask you in your homes and your businesses to do the same. Every little bit of conservation can make a big difference in our overall energy consumption. And it's as simple as turning off a light when you leave a room. In addition, as we renovate the buildings on this Capitol complex or build any new buildings in the future, we're going to put in place energy-saving mechanisms that will make these buildings green. Not since the 1970s has there been so much discussion about the role of energy and how it is produced and used. And I challenge us all to do our part to ensure our state and our country has a stable energy supply so that we can control our own destiny and protect our nation's security. Going back once more to my first State of the State address, I remember saying then that I believed it was a new day in West Virginia, not only for the families that live here, but for the companies that want to do business and create good jobs here. I still believe that to be true. So much so that if West Virginia were a company about to be listed on the stock market, I am confident that the experts on Wall Street would recommend us as a buy. However, we can't continue down this path without help. As everyone knows, our best resource has always been our people, and not just those who are here today living and working in West Virginia, but those who were born and raised in West Virginia and have left the state because they felt they had no other choice in order to make a living. Unfortunately, we are all guilty of teaching an entire generation that they couldn't find a good job in West Virginia, so don't even bother about trying. Well, that's absolutely not true today. And now our challenge is to reverse these thoughts and show those who have left that this is the perfect time to come home. Some of the most successful people in this country are native West Virginians. Sylvia Matthews, Chief Operating Officer of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Wes Bush, President of the Northrop Grumman. Ralph Baxter of Orick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, who has come home to West Virginia to co-chair our 21st Century Jobs Cabinet. And of course, as previously mentioned, John Chambers, CEO of Cisco Systems. And I know there are many, many more success stories out there, both large and small, that most of us aren't even aware of, except for the proud mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters who deep down wish their loved ones were here in West Virginia. Regardless of your field of expertise, we need you and your intellectual capital, ingenuity and work ethic, now more than ever. We need those of you who have an entrepreneurial spirit or those who have accomplished your goals and are looking for a place where you can teach others all that you have learned. You'll recognize much of what you left behind, but you'll also find a workforce and a business community that has made tremendous advancements. While your coming home will help us to make an even better place to live and work, it will also be rewarding for you as well, because you'll be able to give something back to this place that I know you've always carried with you in your heart and is such an important part of who you are today. So to get the word out, we are going to start a Come Home to West Virginia campaign this year through our Department of Commerce. This recruiting campaign will be aimed at bringing former West Virginia residents back home to either work in West Virginia's growing industries or to expand in West Virginia the businesses they have started in other places. As Donna Briggs, a longtime employee at one of our welcome centers, once told the New York Times, looking over your shoulder and missing home is something West Virginians know a lot about. So for those West Virginians out there longing to come home, know that we're keeping the light on for you. I'm pretty positive you know the way. Just take the nearest country road back to the place where you belong, West Virginia. Or more appropriately based on popular opinion, wild, wonderful West Virginia. I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me the opportunity to tell the whole world just how good you are. I want to thank you so much for helping West Virginia be what she is today. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of West Virginia. Thank you and good night.
This is live coverage of Governor Manchin's fourth State of the State address from the House chamber at the state capitol in Charleston. Coming up, the Republican response. Senator Don Caruth and Delegate Tim Armstead will be joining us, also live from the House chamber in just a few moments in order to give us their thoughts on the governor's address tonight. Well, just about 50 minutes of a State of the State address, which is maybe a little longer than in past years, but this governor has a lot of enthusiasm, and he really likes to talk, and he really likes to give a State of the State address.
And you saw there, Beth, probably the most controversial, I think, and interesting proposal was the Promise Scholarship. Now, that belonged to Governor Bob Wise. That was his baby. But now Manchin wants to put his own mark on it to require West Virginians who get the Promise Scholarship to stay in the state in order to receive it as a grant. Otherwise, it would be transferred into some sort of loan. Short on the details about that, I wondered what you thought about the applause line and how that would go over with the legislature.
What do you mean, like applause line?
It seemed like it was kind of tepid applause, I guess, for that. I don't know if that's going to fly or not.
I don't know. You know, this would be an interesting question for the Republican response, for the minority leaders in the House and the Senate. A lot of Republicans have been saying for an awful long time, a lot of Democrats too have been saying for a long time, look, we are paying these scholarship winners, we're giving them scholarships, and what are they going to do? They're going to take what we give them, they're going to get a great education at one of our state schools, and then they're going to leave. If they leave, they ought to pay it back. So it's been talked about, kind of mumbled around here and there, but it'll be real interesting to see what occurs there. It will have to take legislative action in order to have that happen.
Of course, the biggest applause line of the night was the announcement of the Wild Wonderful sign. That was probably one of the bright, shiny objects we looked at a lot last year during the legislature. Took up a lot of time. What should we call ourselves? Open for business. And so...
You notice this year, though, the first year that he did the whole, you know, our state signs are going to say open for business. The sign was huge. He needed 2 assistants to hold up this sign. This one's a little smaller. This one was easy enough for him to do that. But remember, the state voted. What do you think our slogan should be? They, you know, came up with 3 or 4 different choices, and you went online and you voted for your choice, and Wild Wonderful, which was actually begun in the 1970s, won. One of the things that I'll be interested in talking to our Republican responders about is this notion of bringing back, come home to West Virginia, recruiting former residents who have opened businesses and have been successful elsewhere to come to West Virginia. The Republicans have always said we can't recruit, we can't get businesses to come here because our taxes are too high, insurance is too high, workers' compensation is too high. So we'll see how that goes over.
This is kind of a chicken and egg question, Beth. I mean, Manchin is talking a lot about investing in education. There was a lot of money for workforce development. There was money for research. And a little bit for teacher raises. I don't think enough for some of the AFT members that were in the audience. This is, and the idea being that West Virginians won't be, the economy can't develop unless we increase our level of education, our skills, and our training. The Republicans, I think, have a different point of view. They're saying that basically we must cut our taxes first to make our business climate more friendly. That will attract the jobs, and then we'll have the money to educate the populace. And so it's sort of this tug of war that's been going on. And Manchin, I think, is kind of splitting the difference. But a lot of this speech about education and about training, almost half of his proposals had something to do with one of those 2 subjects.
A very interesting proposal. Revoke the driver's licenses of those students who are basically bullies. who intimidate teachers, who intimidate other students, who bring a gun to school or bring some sort of weapon to school, revoking the driver's license of those. And also, ages 16 to 18, you must receive passing grades in order to retain a driver's license. I remember when the legislature passed the law that said in order to stay, if you drop out of school, you lose your driver's license. And that was a controversial law at that time. I think it still is in effect. In order to get your driver's license in West Virginia, you have to, well, the school system has to fill out an affidavit to say that, yes, you are indeed a student at that county school system or a private school. So it might be interesting to hear how the state school board and the State Department of Education, because they were left to implement this, revocation of the driver's licenses once they drop out of school. So here they've got a little something more to do in terms of revoking the driver's licenses of those who commit bullying kind of acts. And you must receive passing grades to retain your driver's license. That's pretty interesting.
Well, Beth, I thought I saw a lot of passion in Manchin and when he's talked about those things. And it was a little bit unexpected going into the bullying and going into... and it might be a way to help educators to have a more pleasant experience in their classroom without necessarily having to give big budget-busting sort of pay raises.
We are waiting for Senator Dawn Carruth and Delegate Tim Armstead, the minority leaders of the House and the Senate, to get their headphones on and their microphones on and get ready to speak to us from the House chamber. There will be a little lull here. The House does have to go back into session for just a minute or two once everybody leaves, in order to take the budget bill that the governor presented them when he first walked up to the podium. He hands he hands envelopes to both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House. That is his proposed budget, and they take those and have them introduced and referred to the finance committees to begin the budget process.
Speaking of the budget, Beth, there were $81 million in pay raises, not just for teachers, for all state workers, essentially, higher education, school service workers. It amounts to about a 3% raise across the board for them again, which is essentially keeping in line with inflation. Again, Manchin making modest pay raises. The budget, again, was pretty good for West Virginia. We've had several good years, a lot of money coming in from the coal industry. They're projecting, though, that next year the revenue will rise by only 1% because of a recession and because of changes in the housing industry. And so you're starting to see they're still making these one-time expenditures, about $364 million this year, but in the future the budget is still projected to go into deficit another 2 years. So there's a reluctance to raise spending that much, and spending hasn't really gone up that much this year.
And this is where you get into the political divide at the legislature, is this huge surplus. I think our Republican minority leaders will be saying, look, we're taking more money in than we need to operate state government. Therefore, you got to start lowering taxes. Take away the food tax. Take away the business franchise tax. Do something to lower the tax burden so that we don't have these big surpluses. There are many in government who love the big surplus. You do get to do some of these one-time great ideas in order to move the state forward. It'd be interesting to hear also this year, the governor talked about debt reduction. There's been a big focus, a big effort on debt reduction over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years at the legislature. And is debt reduction still the big shiny object that everybody wants to look at? Will they continue to pour so much money into the debt reduction? The sins of the past, the idea that people made promises and never put the money in to make those promises happen. And so it'll be interesting to see. They still have to do some debt reduction, but it seems to me, I'm hearing that there's going to be less of a focus on it this session than there has been before, because they've made good progress.
And Manchin definitely was taking a victory lap, wasn't he? I mean, going around and talking about the workers' comp reform, talking about all the mine safety legislation. And actually, just listening to the list, it's a long list of changes that they have made after Sago and after Aracoma. Of course, that Manchin already was a relatively popular governor, but his response to those mining tragedies really have kind of set him on the path he's on today. Talking about reductions in taxes, not as much as our Republican members of the House of Delegates and Senate would like, but definitely some modest reductions in taxes. It's almost like Manchin has taken all of these different things that he could do. He could, completely reduce the debt. He could cut taxes. He could give pay raises to teachers and other state workers, and kind of split the difference on all three. And so, maybe that's one reason why he really doesn't have serious opposition yet to date. He's managed to keep all these different groups at bay. Now, again, I saw an interesting shot there of two women wearing American Federation of Teachers T-shirts up there in the balcony, had their arms crossed, seemed a little bit sort of like defensive. So, again, you see teachers getting impatient. Did you notice how Governor Manchin mentioned state workers almost right off the bat?
From the very beginning, state workers at the very beginning.
Now, isn't that interesting?
Why do you think it's interesting?
I think that's one group of people that he kind of has gotten off on the wrong foot with, especially with some resented his talk about how they should answer the phone, how they should dress, didn't think he was treating them like professionals. It's speculated that's one reason why he lost an election on the pension bond deal in Kanawha County in particular. Back in 2005, and so I think he's trying to reach out to them again. There's a big group of people. Most of them vote.
All right. One of the things he did not touch on is locality pay. The idea for teachers that, depending on where you live, for instance, in the Eastern Panhandle, where the cost of living is higher. And remember, he's offering a 3% pay raise. Last year, he offered a 2.5% pay raise. The legislature raised it to 3.5%. So it's possible the legislature will look at the budget and say, 3.5%, no. It's an election year. We want to do a little more than 3% and see if, working with the teachers' unions, the WVEA and the AFT West Virginia, and seeing if that can increase a little bit. Probably not as much as the unions will be asking for, but at least a little bit. But the unions have, as I recall, have not really liked the idea of paying teachers differently depending on which region of the state that they live in. But he does have some sort of options in mind for county boards to look at, for the State Department of Education to look at, in order to recruit and retain the best teachers that we possibly can. Well, we understand that the minority leaders are ready and wired and will speak with us in just a few moments from the House chamber to present the Republican response to the State Address. They are Senator Don Carruth. Senator Carruth was first elected to the House in 2002. He was elected to the Senate in 2004. He is an attorney from Athens, West Virginia. And Delegate Tim Armstead, first appointed and then elected to the House in 1998. He is an attorney from Elk View. Gentlemen, welcome. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can, Beth.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome. Glad you're here. About a 50-minute speech. That's about normal, we think, for Governor Manchin to give. What did you think, first of all, and I want to get you to list your legislative priorities in just a minute. But first, this whole idea he ended his speech with, if you are from West Virginia and you moved away and you started a successful business, why don't you consider coming home to West Virginia and starting a business here? What'd you think?
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, Beth, I think that's a tremendous challenge for us, and I certainly would like to see that take place. We have a lot of talent that originated here in West Virginia, and certainly we would love to see that talent come home and make our state better and stronger. So I would think that would be something we would all agree would be a great goal for West Virginia. Sometimes it's going to be hard to do that if someone has been successful in another state, but we certainly, I think, always have that as a goal for West Virginia.
If I may add to that, Beth.
Of course.
I think that your question sort of actually segues into what we will talk about in our agenda. The reason that's a very good idea, of course, whether it's practical or not, depends upon whether we have an economically competitive climate in West Virginia for those businesses to return to. And we're I would say, disappointed over the last several years that we have not done more to develop that economic climate in this state.
And that's what I was getting to, Senator Carruth, is that the Republicans have said for many years now that the business climate isn't friendly here. You've got the business franchise tax and other taxes that businesses here have to pay, and they aren't willing to come here. Is that the case, do you think?
I think it is the case, and it's more than just taxes. If the governor, of course, delivered a very good speech, he always does a nice job in his delivery of the speech, but the things he talked about in West Virginia, whether it was workers' compensation, of course he didn't talk about some of our tort reforms things, but those were 2 and 3 years ago, and we're really just the start of the process, and the process is just going nowhere for the last several years. And that's the type of thing that we believe we need to continue to do in West Virginia, to have an environment that will attract businesses, whether it's the businesses he mentioned or just the businesses who are considering locating in West Virginia or just across the line in Virginia.
Senator Carruth and Delegate Armstead, my colleague Scott Finn is here with me in the studio. He'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Delegate Armstead, I'm wondering what your reaction is to the proposal on Promise, to tie Promise to staying in the state after they graduate.
Well, that's actually a proposal that we had proposed something similar to in past years. We would like to see there to be a contribution back to the state by those who benefit from the Promise Scholarship, and I think that those who choose to go and use their talents outside of the state, certainly they could still benefit from the program and then pay back so that others in the state could benefit from it. So we'll have to see the details of that and how you would go about qualifying to have it as a forgivable loan. But I think conceptually, I think it's something that I find very interesting.
Also, Senator Carruth, there's a lot of extra new spending in this bill. There's money for research at WVU and Marshall, $50 million, $30 million for training, workforce development. What do you think of this use of this one-time surplus money? Are we doing the right thing with it?
Well, it's very hard to answer that question right now because we don't know the details. In the main, I would generally say that the kind of money that's spent in workforce development and economic development is very worthwhile. I don't know whether until we see the bill and until we see the particulars, this is moving in that direction. So it's hard to answer that question now. But generally, I would say I think it's worth spending money on economic development if it's in the right direction.
Gentlemen, to both of you, will there be an emphasis on debt reduction this year? It seems to me, I'm kind of hearing from some sources at the Capitol that debt reduction isn't it's still a priority and it still must be done, but it isn't as crucial as it used to be several years ago. Is that what you're hearing? Senator Carruth or Delegate Armstead, doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know, but I'm not really hearing that necessarily. Okay. But in terms of some things we've read about how much we have deposited into those accounts that were certainly underfunded before, we are at a point now where, again, I keep using the terms economic development, and every person who is an office holder uses that term. But I think that we do need to particularly use any excess money that we have and some of the revenue that we derive to develop to develop economic development, and also to use that money to defray the current costs of cutting the taxes where they need to be.
All right.
I certainly agree with that. I think that we have done a great deal toward debt reduction, and that's important, but there is a balance. You can reduce debt and reduce our long-term debt, and at the same time provide some tax relief to citizens and businesses in West Virginia, because that is actually, I think, how we're going to create jobs in West Virginia and to grow our economy. So certainly there's a balance there, and we put a great deal of money into debt reduction up to this point. Perhaps maybe we can focus more in this session on tax reduction.
I see. Very good.
I have a sort of strategy question for both of you. You're both Republicans in a legislature that's dominated by Democrats, with a Democratic governor who's relatively popular running again. What's your strategy? When do you reach across the aisle, and on what issues are you going to take stands that might actually put you at odds with the leadership of both the House and the Senate?
Well, I think we're always willing, certainly, to work with the governor and the legislative leadership, but we do have priorities that we believe are important, and it's our role to bring those to the forefront. As we said last week when we rolled out our agenda, we believe it's really the people's agenda, and it's what the people we represent are telling us they want to see happen here. And so it's our responsibility, I think, to try to bring those issues to the forefront, to fight for those issues. And certainly a part of that challenge is to be able to convince our colleagues across the aisle that these are the right things to do for West Virginia. And that's where our efforts really lie.
Let me add to that, Scott. Our role is no different than it has been in other years. I think one of the roles that we have is to advise the public and keep the public advised, not only of the things that we believe are necessary to move the state forward, but also, particularly in this year where we, in our interim sessions, have had some bills which we think are moving the state backward, to be careful to point that out and let the public know and the press know when we think the state's not heading in the right direction and when we think things are just not good legislation.
To that end, Delegate Armstead, I know the House Republicans held a news event on Monday to unveil your legislative priorities for this session. Can you go through that list for us?
Certainly. It's a fairly broad list, but I think the key issues, the primary issues, are economic development, job creation, incentives. Those include fully eliminating the business franchise tax. And let's remember that that's a tax that both Governor Underwood's and Governor Manchin's independent tax days have said are certainly an anti-competitive, anti-growth tax. We believe eliminating that immediately rather than over 5-10 years is much more likely to create an economic boost for our state and create jobs. So that's one of the big initiatives that we'd like to see. Also, additional tax cuts and cuts for seniors in terms of their tax burden that they're facing now. Try to improve the homestead exemption, make it more valuable to our seniors so that their property taxes are lower. But also, we have some initiatives that relate to improving our legal climate. We have immigration initiatives that we want to discuss, education initiatives, putting more of the dollars and the decision making back to the counties in that regard. And also, we would like to see a tax credit for those who do not currently have health insurance, who are able to go out and get health insurance. We'd like to see a tax credit for that. We also have some issues relating to other taxes that we'd like to see cut. So it's a pretty broad agenda, but the real emphasis is we believe we must be much more bold, much more aggressive. We need to take stronger steps to improve our economy than what we've been doing in the past few years.
Senator Carruth, on to you. Do you have your legislative priorities drafted up yet?
Well, actually, we agree with most of those priorities which the House has designated. We were not in a position, just having not met enough times, to have joined in the agenda. We certainly support the agenda that they advanced. Let me add about taxes. The governor indicated that we have been reducing some of those important business taxes over a period of time. My argument to that is, again, my county's border on Virginia. Companies are not going to come here instead of Virginia simply because there's a promise that by 10 years from now we're going to have competitive taxes. We just have to do it now in order to be competitive. Other than that, we have some of the same things on the agenda. We're certainly in favor of merit selection of our Supreme Court justices, or at least non-political election, nonpartisan election of the judges. And there are certainly other things, and including some civil justice reforms which have not been completed.
Well, Senator Carruth, you mentioned a couple of things that came up that you want to stop. What are some of the most dangerous ideas to you that are coming out of the legislature right now that you guys want to bring to the public's attention and keep from happening?
Well, the one that I'll principally mention is the efforts that have come out of the committee, the joint committee on judiciary, that would create an oversight committee on the workers' compensation rules. Have several reasons to oppose that. First of all, we're not to day one yet when the private insurance companies are even in the business of providing workers' compensation insurance here. So I think there's a substantial deterrent effect to that bill. Secondly, I don't think any other states have, at least I heard the insurance commissioner say that she wasn't aware of any other states that had that type of mechanism. But thirdly, it is really an indication that we're going back to a point where the legislature has some control over workers' compensation, particularly the medical management of claims and those type of things, and we just don't need to go in that direction.
Do you buy it, Senator, when some of the supporters of this say it's just a notification for the legislature and not oversight?
Well, I don't buy that in a way, and the explanation would probably take longer than this show to tell you why I don't think that. But as you well know from having observed the legislature over years, once you start a trend, the trend continues to move. And number one. Number two is what good does it do to have a notification of these rules, which are sometimes very complicated and very esoteric, I'll use the word, and would be nothing but a rubber stamp anyway, unless there was somebody who was particularly opposed to rules that would create the problem in that manner.
Mm-hmm. One last thing, gentlemen, I'm curious about. The governor talked about establishing a commission on school bullying to report recommendations for stopping it to him and to the legislature. He'd like to revoke the driver's licenses of kids who are coined bullies. They've committed some sort of crime, or they've harassed a teacher, and for 16 to 18-year-olds, you must receive passing grades to retain a driver's license. What do you think of these ideas?
Well, the first idea certainly seems reasonable to me. I'd have to study the issue on the passing grades. There are a lot of young people of school age that may use their car to work and other things, and so I don't know that I've made a decision on that yet, having first heard it tonight.
That's right. We first heard about this tonight. It was kind of new and unusual to me. Delegate Armstead, your ideas about that particular point of the governor's State of the State address tonight?
Well, I think we all recognize that in order to have an educational system that works, there can't be chaos in schools, and we certainly need to take steps to make sure there isn't violence from one student to another. It will be interesting to see what those recommendations would be, and certainly if we can take steps in our school system to give teachers back some control over the classroom, if that is not there in some situations, then I think we would certainly have to give a serious look at that. As Senator Cruz said, we'll have to see the details of that and see where that goes, but I do think that there are certainly situations where that we do need to address that.
All right. Senator Carruth and Delegate Armstead, thank you very much for your time this evening. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Beth, Scott.
And the minority leaders will be among our guests next week on the Legislature Today. Governor Manchin will be our first guest on our premiere Monday night at 6:30 as we kick off another season of legislative news and information on the Legislature Today. I'm Beth Voorhees, along with Scott Finn and our production team here and at the Capitol. Thank you for joining us for this broadcast of the State Address. We'll see you Monday on the Legislature Today right here at 6:30 on West Virginia PBS. Thanks for joining us. Good night.